But the thing is, it doesn't matter if we have the red wave or not. If we don't put the right Republicans in those seats, the next election, we'll have a blue wave, I promise you. So we need to make sure not only are we getting Republicans elected, but we need to make sure we're getting true conservative patriots elected. So pay attention to these primaries, folks, more than anything. What's that? Dr. Ross? You don't like Dr. Ross? Well, we ain't got to worry about Dr. Ross. We can't vote for him, man. But if Dr. Ross gets to the U.S. Senate and doesn't do what he's supposed to do, we'll expose Dr. Ross as well. We're coming for everybody that doesn't turn the situation around that we're in right now. So what I'm doing right now is we're gathering the squad. We're gathering the squad here in Virginia because I know you guys hear at every election that this election is the most important election in your life. But this actually is. Tuesday is the most important election you guys have ever been involved in. And I don't care if you're 120 years old, this is the most important one. And then guess what? Next year, here in Virginia, that's going to be the most important election you've ever been involved in your life. It is, I promise you, because we can make so many more changes on the state level than we can make on the federal level. And the first thing that I'm coming to do when I take that seat down in Richmond is I'm coming to make sure our elections are secure, because they're not right now. And I'll tell you this, I don't care, I'm not a partisan guy at all. I don't give a damn about either political party, to be honest with you. And you can tell all the leaders of the Republican Party I said so. All I care about are Americans, patriots in America, and my kids actually being able to grow up in a free country. That's all I care about. That's it. So next year, there's a lot of patriots running here in Virginia for delegate and senate. And we're already, the true patriots, we're already getting together. We're already writing legislation. So day one, we're going to be able to slap it down on the table. And we're going to force these Republicans that are already down there to vote with us, or like I said, be exposed. And I want to introduce you guys tonight to one of those true patriots that I spent a lot of time with over the past few months. And I've gotten to know this guy, and I know where his heart is, and I know how much of a patriot he is. And he's one of the guys that's going to go down to Richmond and fight like hell with me. He's running for state senate in District 1, which is up in the Winchester area. So I will ask him to come down tonight and say a few words and get you guys fired up about next year, because whatever happens on Tuesday, we're coming for Virginia next year, ladies and gentlemen. So let me introduce to you guys your next state senator of District 1, Lance Allen.
I move around a lot, but for C-SPAN, I'm going to try to keep it still, I promise. All right, Matt, let's fix a couple of things. Number one, somebody get me a beer. We got to fix a couple of things. Number two, let's make it a Bud Light. Jennifer with limes, right? There you go. That's not bad. Thank you. All right, number two, we're not a squad. I'm going to fix the terminology a little bit. We're putting together a band of brothers and sisters. We got a swamp to clean. Yeah, there's a swamp in Washington, but there's a swamp right down the road in Richmond, and we can't fix what's wrong in this country until we fix what's wrong in this state. Can I get an amen? Y'all all right out there? What you're going to hear tonight is a story of fighters. Matt said this campaign. Tonight's not about him, it's not about his campaign. I'm sure that humility goes well, and I appreciate it. But this fight is about all of us. Matt called me yesterday and gave me the update on the restaurant, and he said they revoked my license, Lance. I said, Matt, you sure you want to do this? You sure you want to go to war with these people? He said, remember when you were running for lieutenant governor? I said, yeah. He said, remember whenever a statewide candidate came through my restaurant and used me as a photo op for their campaign against the unconstitutional acts of the government of Virginia? I said, yes. I looked at Matt and I said, let him have it. Let him have it. part-time application to Gourmeltz. I'll be behind the bar tonight serving beers. The first round's on me. Matt, don't you ever shut down. Don't you ever stop selling alcohol. And let us make the message loud and clear to the swamp in Richmond, no matter who you are, no matter what you wear next to your name, we have constitutional rights and we will not be silenced, we will not be shut down, and we will never let a government do to us the things that they did to us. Never again. Raise a glass to that.
Chug! There he goes. All the way!
I'm not sure that's allowed on C-SPAN. I apologize. Let me say one more thing about Matt before I move to our next guest. Matt's not going to ask you, but he needs your help. You know what I'm about to ask, but before I do, let me say one thing to you. I was raised by an onion farmer. My father was murdered when I was 6. My mom died shortly after. My grandfather took me in. We grew up in the small town of Vidalia, Georgia. He'd pull onions out of the ground, wipe them off, eat them, and he could tell you if an entire field was ready. Consequently, don't ask me to share an onion with you. I don't like it. But he taught me a few things. He taught me to look a man in the eye. He taught me to always tell the truth. It's a whole lot simpler to tell the truth, and it's a whole lot easier. And he told me to fight like hell for the things that I believe in. Matt's a humble guy. So let me tell you something real quick. My grandfather used to make me watch Billy Graham. And Billy Graham used to say something that I think is absolutely spot on. We're not after the Republican majority. That's not what I'm after. I'm sorry if that disappointed you somehow. I'm not after the liberal, the Democratic majority. I'm not after that majority. I am after the moral majority. Do you understand what I'm saying? It's the idea that what we're after doesn't have anything to do with politicians on the left or the right. It has everything to do with the very soul, the very fabric of who we are as a people. And if you can honestly look around right now and say the world that you're handing your children is better than it was a year ago, 2 years ago, 10 years ago, then get out. Get out. Because the truth is, the world we're handing my children is a world where they have to be afraid. So Matt's not going to ask you, and I'm going to ask you for him. If you're going to send fighters down to Richmond to clean the swamp, they need your help. They need money, they need votes, they need calls, and they need field soldiers. They need people that will go to war with them. We need people that will go to war with us. The same way that you went to war against Richmond in 2020 and 2021, we're going to go to war with you in 2023, buddy. We're going to do it. Let me say one thing, and then one more thing about a man we're all here to see tonight, and then I'll be done, because blessed are the brief, for they shall be invited back. Scheller is a man of controversy. And he came to an event of mine last night, and he spoke about his fight in the military. There were two things that struck me about everything that we talked about last night. Number one, he never needed to spin the story. He never needed to change the facts. He never needed to make it personal. He had the moral courage to stand up and do the right thing because it was the right thing. And when they hit him, he got back up. Now you and I would think that's enough. But when they hit him again, he got right back up. And when they told him he'd lose his career, he kept right on going. When they told him he would go to jail, he got right on in there. He said, bring it on. 7 days a week, 24 hours a day, I'm right here. Let's go. The second thing that stuck with me is when somebody asked you, was it worth it? And you you gave the most humble answer I've ever heard in my life. It was the truth. And the truth was, I don't know yet because I can't see it. I'm stuck down at the bottom. Man, what a struggle. What a testament to that sacrifice. I'm still down at the bottom, climbing my way out. Let me tell you something. It's going to be worth it. And you know why? Because my kids get to look at you and they get to see a man who did the right thing because it was the right thing. It's what Billy Graham always talked about. I'm using Billy Graham because I grew up with my grandfather, okay, so don't hold it against me. Billy Graham used to say there was never a great thing or a great man that ever came without a great sacrifice. You have made a great sacrifice for our nation. And you might not see it today, you might not see it tomorrow, you might not see it next week. But your children, your sons, they're standing up for you, not me. I'm just saying what they're all thinking. Your children, your sons will look up at you and they will know that a man stood up, that a father stood up and did the right thing and set the right example. And for the rest of your life, if you never get a thank you from FJB, if you never get a thank you, you will have their love and their respect. And you will have the respect of me and my family and my sons. You are a true hero and a patriot, and we can't wait to hear your story. So let me get out of the way, all right? Just one more thing before I go. Matt Strickland, Stu, would you come right on up with me just for one more second? And let me tell you right now, this is what the moral majority looks like. Stu, come on up here, man. This is what moral courage looks like. We don't win, we don't fight, we don't get out of that foxhole, we don't climb out of the bottom of that pit without you. So we need you in 2023, we need you in 2024, we need everything you've got because we've got work to do, Virginia. Let's go get them. Man, it's all yours, buddy.
Thank you, Max. I told him he's a good egg. We're going to go down to Richmond and tear some stuff out, folks. All right, folks. I just finished Stu's book a couple of days ago, and I wanted to talk about a couple of things real quick that hit me very hard when I read his book, because I went through a similar situation, as you guys know, that he did. He wrote in the book that he sat in his office and something told him to make that video. And he didn't post the video from his office. He drove home on a 30-minute drive thinking, should he post this video? Because he had no idea what the effects were to come after that. He talked about in the book how he paced in front of his house before he walked in, thinking about should he hit post on that video and thinking how it might affect him and how it might affect his family in the future. This man was at 17 years for his military career. He was a lieutenant colonel. All he had to do was 3 more years, and this man would have been paid a retirement at a lieutenant colonel level for the rest of his life. Now, to give that up, when somebody gives something like that up, just because of his moral courage, man, you got to listen to him at the very least. And I went through a similar situation here at Gourmeltz when I made my video sitting in the car. I wrestled with the decision, should I hit post on that or not? Because my wife and I, we had no idea what would happen after I hit post. We had no idea if anybody was going to be here supporting us, or if everybody in the community felt like a piece of cotton actually protected them from a virus, and we would get no business anymore, and everything that we worked our whole adult life for would be gone. But the reason why Stu hit post is this, and I know why he hit post, because it's the same reason why I hit post. Because there was something bigger than us, something bigger than his career, something bigger than Gourmeltz, something bigger than money that was telling us, if you don't hit post, who will? And we've already seen the answer to that. The answer to to that is nobody will. So the reason we hit post is to start a revolution, folks. And I think you guys see the proof is in the pudding. That revolution is started. And there's a few reasons why we hit post. One, there's an excerpt from his book that I want to read real quick. Stu said this. Stu was a battalion commander at the Advanced Infantry School. He was a battalion commander, folks. And this is in his book, so when you read it, you'll see this episode, and it hit me hard. One of the instructors at the Advanced Infantry School said to Stu, after he made that video, "Sir, I agree with your comments, but these statements can hurt the battalion. It can be used against us by our enemies. Now, how can anything that he put in the book be used against our enemies? You know what can be used against us by our enemies? The lack of leadership that we have right now in the military. That's what can be used against us." But Stu's response to that is what really hit me. And Stu said to him in reply, "If our senior leaders can't address our internal problems, then we shouldn't be talking about our enemies." And the reason that hit me hard is because that's exactly what's going on right here in America right now. All of these people that run around and tell us how conservative they are and how big of patriots they are, they get our votes every time the election rolls around. And then they forget who the hell we are. So that's the reason why I'm running for state senate, because, listen folks, if we can't clean our own house, how are we going to go to somebody else's house and tell them their house is dirty, while we have roaches running around in our house? So before you criticize anybody, you got to make sure that your stuff is straight and that your house is clean. Folks, I can't tell you how much I love this man right here. From the first time I met him, man. The bromance is real, man. I love this man for all the courage that he has shown us, man. And I am proud to call Stu a brother. So what I want to do, guys, and listen, after Stu says a few words, we're going to have a quick Q&A. So anybody that would like to ask him any questions, just raise your hand, and I'll bring the mic over to you, ask him a question, and he'll answer it. And I know he will, because Stu's just like myself. Any question you got to throw at us, we'll answer. You might not like the answer, but we'll answer it. Promise you that. So folks, it's my pleasure to introduce to you somebody that will go down as one of the biggest American patriots in the history of America, Stu Scheller. Thank you.
So, there's a lot going on here. After what just was said there, there's one thing I want to say to C-SPAN. Matt didn't put me up to this. And just for everyone's context, I'll go through my story in a second. Right now, I'm on a book tour. I'm on a book tour through Christmas. And then I got to figure out what I want to be when I'm growing up. I have people that are trying to get me into politics right now. The race they're trying to push me into is the U.S. Senate out of Ohio. I don't know if I want to be a politician. The words that are being used here right now, patriot, my platform is about courage. Governor Youngkin, we were all very happy to see you get elected. You are potentially a presidential candidate. You have stood in this restaurant and made promises. My platform is about courage. I expect you to do the right thing. All right, that's preface. So my name is Stu. I was a lieutenant colonel, 17 years, infantry officer, and I was an advanced infantry training battalion commander, and exactly, I won't repeat everything Matt just said, but I got to a point in my career where I saw a list of decisions that were made that were unacceptable. And everyone that works in a bureaucracy, you see things that happen all the time through action that aren't congruent with the mission statement of the police. And you don't go around and point every single one of them out, right? Otherwise you wouldn't make it very far. So I wasn't a sitting battalion commander by pointing out every time there was an injustice. And I was only 3 years till the end of my career, but I just got to a point where I couldn't put my head down and be complacent. And I'm just going to go through this list real quick, and I'll kind of bring it back to just moral courage and in my story. But in Afghanistan, 1 April, President Biden told General McKenzie I want you to go from 2,500 down to 650 troops. General McKenzie
could have pushed back. He chose not to. He may have disagreed with it, but he didn't resign and he accepted the restraints of the plan. We conducted that operation from April to September. Anyone that's ever been to Afghanistan knows that's the peak fighting season. We have what we call spring fighting season because the Taliban hides in the mountains in the winter. The reason we risked American lives and treasure was because of a bullshit September 11th date. And our general wasn't brave enough to push back, and our president wasn't wise enough to take the counsel. So we continue to execute. In the military investigation, which was sent to me by my peers who were also just as frustrated, it outlines, so we're conducting a withdrawal, right? We're dropping down. Concurrently, we assign a one-star general planning the evacuation as a be prepared to, separate mission. This is the Department of State, this is the Department of Defense, in DC planning it. They plan on using Bagram Air Base until the 3rd week of June. This is in the investigation. All of a sudden, in the 3rd week of June, General McKenzie said, you know what, 650 is not enough to hold the embassy and the airfield, so we're going to pull Bagram off. That caused the planners to reset the entire plan. 3 months of planning lost. Terrible decision, but what's worse is the indecisiveness, which not one Congress member asked about in the congressional testimony. Not one interviewer since McKenzie has gotten into the news on MSNBC or Morning Joe asked the question, hey, in the military investigation states you didn't decide to pull Bagram until the 3rd week of June. Why were you so indecisive? That would be a great question to ask. So we make that decision. We leave Bagram on 1 July. We leave 7,000 prisoners in the prison. Just leave them in there. The Taliban walks in on 10 August unopposed, releases the 7,000 prisoners, which, by the way, is a much larger force than we ended up responding in complete force with. 10 August, now General McKenzie realizes this thing's going bad. He throws 2 Marine battalions and an 82nd Airborne, 5,000 troops who went from 2,500 to 650 up to 5,000. On 15 August, that's the picture where you see all the civilians hold onto the airplanes. The Taliban surrounded the airfield, pushed all the civilians on the airfield and used them as cover as they got into firefights with the Marines. Marines killed 6 or 7 people. We don't talk about it. That same day, General McKenzie is in Doha, negotiates basically a surrender with the Taliban. They form our external security. He can't talk about the firefights. He calls them a critical partner. Then the Taliban lets a suicide bomber through the checkpoint, probably came from the prison, we'll never know. Kills 13 service members, injures 20 more, hundreds of Afghans and brigade killed. And then in response to that, we conduct a drone strike and kill nothing but women and children. And then we stand in front of everyone and say it was an overwhelming success. Ladies and gentlemen, there is no better list of overwhelming failure than those lists of decisions. Bottom line. And for us to not hold one senior military leader accountable is criminal. So, some of that information came out to me after the fact, like the investigation. The investigation, if you go back and watch the news, was presented, it's like the reporter, Lester Holt, I think is his name, and he interviewed President Biden when that military investigation came out. And President Biden said, I reject the conclusions in that. You know, Lester Holt, trying to be somewhat of a journalist, says, well, can you tell us what part specifically you reject? And he said, I reject it. And that was it. There was no other logical explanation, and we have never since gone back and talked about it. And it's like, just look away. Pretend like it's not happening. So, sitting in my office, I made a social media video. Go back and watch. I stated I knew I was willing to risk my job, my retirement, my family stability. Like, I understood what I was doing. The next day, I was fired immediately. I was bullied, and I had a choice. I could lick my wounds, apologize, step back. I fully believed the Marine Corps would have let me go to retirement. So they would have, what they told me was, you can go to Quantico, you can hide in a cubicle, make PowerPoints, we'll take care of you. You don't have, you got mental health problems, right? I know you're saying you don't, but you got mental health problems, right? So I could have done that. Or, the other option was to apply pressure and attack, right? And obviously I took the second course of action. So I just decided I'm all in. Like I believe in what I'm saying, I'm not backing away from it. I joined the Marine Corps, not to be a career officer or to have a retirement, but to leave a better America for my children. Not for anybody So I continue making statements, and then this is where, like, you know, people ask me, like, do you regret anything? Would you have done things differently? So at that point, I mean, I'm just releasing, they can't keep up. I'm just like dropping content. And, you know, was I contact unbecoming gentleman? Yes. Did I violate the social media policy? Yes. Was I ever charged with a false official statement? No. Right? And, you know, as this thing kind of escalated, there was a million mistakes I made. Like, imagine watching a game tape the day after the game in, and the team being like, no, we executed every block perfectly. Like, you played that well, you hit that screen. No way! But it seems like people want to watch an ordeal like this where your whole life is on the line, but nah, remember that one time you said the one thing? It's like, you're guarding the rules of a failing institution. I mean, I just gave you that list of the Afghanistan evacuation. If you're sitting here quoting me the rules of that organization and protecting that, we haven't won a war since World War II. We keep repeating the same mistakes. We need people that are smart enough to figure out when to apply moral courage and break the rules. So, and after I continued to apply pressure, I had to have my mental health checked. They forced me to go on a mental health evaluation trying to get me admitted. The doctor was cool to let me out. Then it was weird for me and my boss. And then I got out of prison, and I ended up resigning short of my retirement. But one of the things I want to talk about, we're talking about courage of politicians. When I went to jail, you read my book, it's all in there. But I put in there, I'll see you Monday at 08, ready to go to jail. I essentially set somewhat of a trap. The reason I did that is because the generals were testifying to the House and Senate Armed Forces Committee, respectively, on a Tuesday, Wednesday. And I laid that out in the book. So I felt I was put in jail, it would apply pressure on the congressional testimony. And it worked. When you're in solitary confinement, you get like 1 hour for TV time, and that, I got to see myself being talked about in the congressional testimony, which was pretty wild. But here's where I got frustrated. I overestimated Congress's ability. If you go back and watch the panels, apolitically, soundbites anger. American people are upset. Why don't you do this? Why don't you do this? What is Congress's control over the DOD? It's the budget. It is the DOD budget. That is their one lever of control. And they don't know that. Not in the news during all those, like, I'm angry. They approved a $750 billion DOD budget, and not one congressional representative said, hey, you want $750 billion? You just left 80 in Afghanistan. I'm going to take that off the top until you give me 3 names of your friends. Right? It's just common sense. And the reason they don't do that is because if I, Congressman Stu Scheller from the 2nd District of Ohio, as a representative, votes no on the $750 billion, then everyone's going to be like, he hates veterans. Like, he's anti-military, right? And no one will listen, just go read the headlines. So they're so scared in terms of self-preservation that they don't do what we as the American people need them to do. It's the same reason all the promises by the current Attorney General and Governor were made to that, and now are not following through because there's risk. I just got into an argument with a congressman in Vegas, a popular one, I won't drop his name, but I said the same thing, like, you mentioned my name, and then when I got controversial, you were nowhere to be found. And no, I'm not gonna do that. Right. I'm in enough trouble with this situation. I'm just saying, I see these people and it drives me crazy. So anyway, now what I'm doing is I'm going around promoting my book, meeting good people, supporting good people where I can, and like I said, I had to figure out what I want to do when I grow up. But that's me in a nutshell, and I will answer questions now. So usually when we do this question and answer, we'll stare at each other for like 20 seconds. Then somebody asks a question, then we get rolling. If we got a question, there it is.
Chuck.
Since you just, John Wallman, and just wondering, since you brought up the budget and the exorbitant amount of money that we spend on defense appropriations every year, we just was in the news today. There's another $40 billion that we're giving to either Ukraine or one of the other nations that's fighting that war. What can be done to stop this out of control spending when we have all the challenges here in the United States? We've got people suffering from a lot of problems, and we're just throwing money away at a needless war.
Yeah, that's a big question. So what happens is there's never never the best answer. Well, I guess you have two choices. So like, let's just use the Ukraine-Russia situation. Everyone wants to protect a democracy in Ukraine, right? But it's at what cost? And that answering that question comes with leadership. You need leaders to make tough decisions, because I agree with you, our spending is recklessly out of control. So the simple answer to your question is, you need leadership that understands the bigger problem. I mean, NATO, right now, Russia aggressed because of the threat of NATO, right? I think Putin has an antiquated mindset. He still has this old Soviet style thinking that more land equals more power. In today's society, that's not actually relevant. It's shaping the beliefs of the people. And so his actions, and look at Finland, look at Sweden, have actually probably done the opposite of what they're trying to achieve. But that is almost a separate issue from the United States' NATO presence. My opinion is it's way too robust. We have crippled our NATO partners, no better example than Germany, with this, we're trying to have them provide 3% of their GDP. If I was the president tomorrow, I would pull all NATO forces, I'd put them on the southern border. The southern border would be solved tomorrow. You wouldn't even need to build a wall, and then you would force your European partners to stand up, right? That would require a lot of courage. Now, there's some risk in that. What I just said, there's a lot of intelligent people that can talk about how that might destabilize the area. And you can have those conversations, but right now, the presence in NATO is too robust. But we couldn't keep 2,500 troops in Afghanistan. There's hundreds of thousands across Europe. That is crazy. All right, next question.
We got a question that came from over here somewhere. Somebody asked this for you, Stu. Do you think it was the founding fathers' intent for a military here in the United States of America to develop into something that the people are actually afraid of?
No, so this is a complicated question because there is no, if you read our foundational documents, it's a force in pursuit of our domestic defense. What happened was World War I, Woodrow Wilson in his 14th speech, he outlined something that talked about America's obligation in the foreign diplomacy stage. So we got involved in the end of World War I. Then in World War II, we literally built this thing, the National Security Establishment as we know it today, from the ground up. And following World War II was the National Security Act of 44, 47, 50, and then after Vietnam, it was the Goldwater-Nichols Act. And so this thing that has evolved really came out of, starting with Woodrow Wilson, and it's a very recent phenomenon. If you read my book, my last point is we need legislation to update the Goldwater-Nichols Act. It's antiquated, it doesn't work. And after Vietnam, instead of, Vietnam, in my opinion, was a loss, and a final loss by not achieving the political objectives set forth. We didn't hold any generals accountable. And so what the smart people did is they decided the services weren't fighting well together. They were going to create a joint force, and they were going to create these combatant commands. And they split the globe up. That combatant command is what McKinsey was in charge of, which is a product of the Goldwater-Nichols Act. So the takeaway is, following the losses in Vietnam, instead of holding general officers accountable, we further empowered them with the Goldwater-Nichols legislation. And so obviously the same mistakes are happening if we're not holding those people accountable. So, it's a complicated problem, but it is solvable with the right Secretary of Defense. And we just haven't had one yet. After World War I, there was a guy named Marshall. He came in and he cleaned house of old style thinking general officers, and that allowed people like Eisenhower to ascend, ultimately leading to our victory in World War II. So we need a Marshall right now, in my opinion. All right, next question.
All right, hey, real quick, folks. Give it up for the guy that I told you was the only local representative to reach out to me, Jacob Lane, ladies and gentlemen. Got a question for you right here, Steve.
Yeah, I'm wondering if you support help we're giving Ukraine. Keep pumping money into them, and if you support Donald Trump.
I'm sorry, I didn't understand the question.
You said, do you support the efforts going on in Ukraine because we're pumping too much money into it, and do you support Donald Trump?
Yeah, all right, those are two very good questions. All right, so let's start with the first one. So as I started, I think the United States needs to protect democracies around the world, but not at the cost of what we're doing now. So I think a lot of what we're doing is disheveled and misguided, and I would dramatically scale back the support we've been giving the Ukrainian people. I mean, the current leader of Ukraine, so I was part of the Israeli-Lebanese war in 2006. Israel was a much larger force, had much better armament, and Hezbollah, through tunnels and anti-tank systems, really gave to these guys hard because they had prepared for it. In Ukraine, I mean, this thing has been developing since 14, and there's not a single tunnel, there's not a single preparation. They were completely unprepared. And so we want to heroize them a lot, but from a military standpoint, they dropped the ball in a lot of ways. And so I'm not necessarily sure that's completely our responsibility. Now, there's a whole nuclear aspect to this too. I don't agree with Elon Musk that Putin is irrational. I think he's very rational. Now, when he get to nuclear war, that's something that we have to be concerned about. We can't turn a blind eye to it, but I think he is very aggressive. So that's my answer. Great. Do I support Donald Trump? I think Donald Trump has had a lot of great policies. I told him that he had great character. So my story on Donald Trump is, when that post I told you about when I was going to jail, I criticized the last 5 presidents, and it's in my book, so I put it in the book, and Donald Trump was one of them. Well, the media only ran the stories about President Trump. I said that President Obama was weak, right? Not a single article written about it, right? I said President Clinton was weak, not a single article. So because I mentioned Trump, I became all of a sudden this anti-MAGA target, and that wasn't my intention. My intention was just to say the whole system is failing. And President Trump called one of my friends and said, I'm going to speak out against Stu, and they talked him off the ledge, and he didn't. So then I wrote a post thanking him. You know, I don't know him personally. I think his foreign policy was on point. Will he run again? You know, I'd like to see him run. That's my answer to that.
All right, next question. Anybody got a question? No? Okay, so we're gonna pull the table up to the stage and bring your book on up. We'll form a line right here, guys, right down the middle here. We'll form a line, and Stu will sign each one of your books, and you get a picture if you like, and then we're gonna rock out party all night with Tony B, guys. Give it up for Tony B, baby. The baddest DJ in the land.
It sounded like something was dying.
I don't know if it's like off, but we were on it, but it was like it was all on it. This is good. I couldn't tell. What? Yeah, it's not going to wax.
But yeah, give it about a minute.
Yeah, if you still get the microphone, that'd be awesome. Before it gets too big.
Hey folks, we have some books over here on this table that have already been pre-signed. So if you don't want it personalized or you don't have time to wait, we do have signed books for purchase over here on the table. And also, if you didn't bring a book with you and you wanted to purchase one tonight, they're for purchase over here. We have some that are signed, so you can roll out if you want to. We've also got some for purchase that are not signed, so you can purchase one, hop in line, and have it personalized. And also, we have we're going to do a couple of giveaways here. So we're going to give away, how many books? We're going to give away 2 books. 2 books.
Yeah.
2 books. There you go. So those of you that signed up, we're going to spin the wheel real quick and announce who won those books. All right, here we go, baby.
The wheel is about to spin right now. It is spinning. The wheel is spinning, ladies and gentlemen.
And this is for a book that's already signed or a blank book, whatever you like.
Showman. He reads better than I do.
All right, Kate Koch, where you at? Where you at, Kate? Kate, are you here? Kate Koch? Kate Koch? Nope. All right, you gotta be here to win.
We're spinning again.
Do you want it?
Lisa and Eric Kennedy. Raise your hand if you're here. Lisa and Eric Kennedy. You guys here? Lisa and Eric Kennedy? No, not here? All right, here we go, baby.
I'm that girl.
Kathy Davis. Is Kathy Davis here?
Kathy Davis.
Oh, Kathy Davis. Come on, somebody gotta be here. Kathy Davis, no?
I'm taking all these books myself, just so you know. Check eBay later on tonight.
There you go. I'm gonna okay, here's Mike.
No, I'm done. I'm done with you. No, I took a really cool stuff. I was emailing with that. Because that look cool as shit.
It's kind of cool.
It looks cool as shit.
He's taking it pretty.
He's super intense. That's the one I zoomed in on.
Todd, where are you, Todd?
I can't help myself.
That's a good job, that guy.
No, I'm not doing that.
That's awesome.
Okay. Well, let's just sign some books. Let's do the books that are already going through. We'll sign some books in for a few minutes. We'll figure it out.